Imagine flying across the world to represent your country at the highest level of football. You land at Chicago O'Hare. You're excited, nervous, ready. Then immigration officers pull you aside. They handcuff you. They interrogate you for 7 hours. No lawyer, no phone call, just questions about why you're here, who you know, what you believe. You're not a criminal. You're not a threat. You're a footballer. And this really happened to an Iraqi player trying to enter the United States to play a World Cup qualifier. On June 5, 2025, Iraq national team player Ali Al-Hamadi arrived at Chicago O'Hare Airport with his teammates for a World Cup qualifier against the United States. While the rest of the squad cleared immigration in minutes, Al-Hamadi was pulled aside. He was detained for 7 hours, questioned about his background, his travel history, his family. The U.S. Customs and Border Protection officers cited the Trump-era travel ban that still affects Iraqi nationals. He missed team meetings, he missed the pre-match dinner, he was released just in time to sit on the bench the next day. Ali Al-Hamadi isn't a random name. He's a professional striker who plays for Ipswich Town in the English Championship. Born in Iraq, he moved to the UK as a refugee when he was a child. He worked his way up through the English football system youth academy, lower leagues, then a breakthrough into professional football. He represents Iraq at the international level, scoring goals for a nation rebuilding its football identity. His story is the classic immigrant dream, except when he tried to enter the country that his national team was playing against, he was treated like a threat. FIFA has a system for this, the FIFA Pass. It's supposed to be a fast-track visa arrangement that guarantees entry for players, officials, and staff traveling for FIFA-sanctioned matches. The host country agrees to honor these passes as part of the tournament hosting agreement. In theory, a player with a FIFA Pass should breeze through immigration. In practice, the FIFA Pass is not a legally binding document. It's a request. The host country's immigration laws always supersede, and when politics gets involved, the FIFA Pass becomes just a piece of paper. Normally, when a country hosts a World Cup, they sign a host agreement with FIFA that includes guaranteed visa access for all participants. Players are supposed to get special entry clearance. For the 2026 World Cup across USA, Canada, and Mexico, the US government agreed to these terms. But there's a catch: the agreement doesn't override existing immigration law. It works for most countries. But for nations on the U.S. travel restriction list, the host agreement doesn't apply. Iraq is one of those nations. And that's where the system breaks. The United States immigration system is complex even for allies. But for countries affected by the Trump-era travel ban, originally Executive Order 13769, nationals from Iraq, Iran, Syria, Yemen, Libya, Somalia, and Sudan face enhanced scrutiny. Even though Iraq was removed from the initial ban list in 2018, the policies created a permanent system of heightened vetting. Anyone from these countries with travel to certain regions faces longer processing times, more questions, and a higher chance of detention. Footballers are not exempt. The travel ban is often talked about as if it ended. It didn't. While the blanket ban on Iraq was lifted in 2018 after diplomatic pressure, the enhanced vetting procedures remain. The 2026 World Cup will be played under immigration policies shaped by Executive Order 13769 and its successors. Any player from a country with elevated risk designation faces additional screening. And because immigration policy changes slowly, the framework that detained Ali Al-Hamadi in 2025 will still exist in 2026. The question isn't whether it will happen again, it's how many times. Al-Hamadi isn't alone. Iranian players have reported similar issues entering the U.S. for matches. In 2024, an Iranian football official was denied entry entirely and sent back on the next flight. A Sudanese player was held for 4 hours at New York JFK. Even the Canadian women's national team faced visa delays for players with dual citizenship from affected countries. The pattern is clear: if you're a footballer from the wrong passport, the U.S. immigration system treats you like a security risk first and an athlete second. This isn't one incident, it's a system. Here's why this isn't just one player's bad day. The 2026 World Cup has 48 teams. Several of those teams have players from countries on the U.S. restricted list. Iraq qualified, Iran qualified, Syria is in the hunt. Saudi Arabia, Tunisia, Morocco, they all have players with complex travel histories. If every player from these backgrounds faces 4 to 7 hour detentions, the tournament's integrity is compromised. Players miss training, miss tactical meetings, miss recovery sessions. Their performance suffers. And in a tournament decided by tiny margins, a 7-hour detention could be the difference between winning and losing. It's not just players. In 2024, an Iraqi sports photographer who had covered the Asian Cup was denied entry to the United States to photograph a friendly match. He had a valid visa. He had accreditation from the Iraqi Football Association. He was turned away at the border with no explanation. His equipment, cameras, lenses, laptops was confiscated. He spent 12 hours in a holding cell before being put on a flight back to Baghdad. He never took a single photo on American soil. The message is loud and clear: if you're Iraqi, your credentials don't matter. Smart national teams now have visa contingency plans. They send players with restricted passports weeks early. They have lawyers on retainer. They prepare documentation packages proving the player's purpose, their club affiliation, their travel history. The Iraqi national team now travels with an immigration lawyer embedded in their delegation. Other affected nations, Iran, Syria, Yemen, have started doing the same. This is the new normal for World Cup qualifiers in America. Before you prepare tactics, you prepare immigration paperwork. The game starts before the game. This isn't just a football problem, it's a diplomatic incident. When a player from Iraq, a nation the U.S. has been militarily involved with for 2 decades, is handcuffed and detained for hours, it sends a message. The Iraqi Football Association filed a formal complaint with FIFA. The Iraqi government raised the issue with the U.S. State Department. These are not small matters. Football is the most popular sport in Iraq. When their national team players are humiliated at the U.S. border, it fuels anti-American sentiment. A 7-hour detention creates a diplomatic headache that lasts months. FIFA has a problem. They can complain. They can issue statements. They can demand the U.S. honor the host agreement. But FIFA cannot override U.S. immigration law. The World Cup is a guest in the host country. If the host says no, FIFA's options are limited. They could threaten to move matches to Canada or Mexico, but that's not realistic for a 48-team tournament already planned across 16 cities. They could pressure the U.S. government diplomatically through the State Department, but ultimately FIFA needs the U.S. more than the U.S. needs FIFA. The power imbalance is clear. Iraq is just the beginning. Iran is also qualified for 2026 and their players have already reported problems. Syria is still in the qualifying race. Yemen, Libya, Somalia, if they qualify, their players will face the same gauntlet. But it's not just the banned countries. Players from Palestine, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and several African nations with weaker passport status often face extra scrutiny. Even players born in these countries who now hold European passports can face questions. The 2026 World Cup will be the first time a U.S.-hosted tournament deals with this scale of access issues. And the list of affected nations is long. Let's take a step back from the politics and the systems and the laws. At the center of all of this is a human being, a man who spent his entire life chasing a football dream, who escaped hardship, built a career, earned a national team call-up. He didn't ask for special treatment, he just wanted to play the game he loves for his country. 7 hours in a detention room, 7 hours of not knowing if you'll be sent back, 7 hours of wondering if everything you worked for is about to be taken away by a stamp on a form. That's the human cost of a broken system. Now, let's be fair. The U.S. has legitimate security concerns. Border security is a real issue. No one is saying every player should get a free pass without screening. But there's a difference between reasonable security and treating a professional athlete like a criminal because of their passport. The balance should be enhanced screening that happens quickly, with dignity, and with the understanding that the person is a World Cup participant. A pre-cleared system for FIFA-accredited individuals. Something between a rubber stamp and a 7-hour interrogation. That balance currently doesn't exist. This isn't just a border story, it directly affects what happens on the pitch. A player who spent 7 hours in detention the day before a match isn't mentally or physically ready. They haven't slept. They haven't eaten properly. They haven't done the pre-match routine. They're running on adrenaline and stress. In a game of fine margins, that's a disadvantage. Iraq's match against the US was a qualifier with huge stakes. Their star striker was on the bench, exhausted and traumatized, instead of leading the line. The system didn't just detain a player. It weakened a team. It changed the game. Ali Al-Hamadi eventually got onto the pitch. But the question for 2026 is bigger than one player. When 48 teams arrive in North America for the biggest World Cup ever, how many players will be pulled aside? How many will spend 7 hours in a detention room instead of preparing for the match of their lives? Football is supposed to bring the world together. But if the host country's immigration system treats half the world's players like threats, what does that say about the tournament? The World Cup 2026 will be the most watched event in human history. The question is, will everyone who deserves to be there actually make it through the door? Follow WC26 Matrix for more breakdowns that change how you watch the game.